Well, welcome. My name is Sarah Donovan, and I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Today is September 11th, 2020, and I'm interviewing Gayle Sands from Taneytown, Maryland, for the oral history project titled COVID-19 Teacher Poets Writing to Bridge the Distance, which will be archived by Oklahoma State University Oral History Research Program. So hello, Gayle, and welcome.
Good morning.
So will you just begin by introducing yourselves and tell me a little bit about how you became an educator and what you're doing now?
Okay, let's start with I just retired this year directly because of COVID. I would not have retired otherwise, and I was never going to be a teacher, so it was kind of an accident. My grandmother was a teacher. I watched her work way too hard. She lived next door. I just have this memory of her constantly grading papers. That's all she did. She was an amazing teacher. I had her for fourth grade. I called her Mrs. Holmes all year. She wanted me to be a teacher, so rather than rebelling against my mom, I rebelled against her, and I was going to do more important things. After 3 colleges, finally graduated. It was the 70s. I ended up with a psych degree, which was useless, was in retail, was going to work on my MBA, and waitressed my way to pay for it, and ended up working for AT&T for a number of years, which I met them as their cocktail waitress. And then I had one child, and then I had twins, which was not in our plans. And they offered an early retirement. I accepted it because we were financially in a good position. And 2 months later, the economy crashed in the 80s. And we went from 100,000 one year to 25,000 the next. And I did not go back to work at that point. We moved up to Taneytown, which is a small town. I started volunteering at the school. They said, you do a really good job, because I would go in and read and hang out. Kids were in kindergarten. What do you think about subbing? I said, well, sure. I needed the money and the schedule worked. So I started subbing. And after about a year of that, somebody said, you really should get, and I realized this was like easy. Classroom management was like, okay, we got this. And the principal said, you really should get your teaching degree. So that summer I was sitting by the pool, and there was an ad in the paper about the graduate program to get your teaching degree. And I said, well, I guess I'll call them. And that's how I became a teacher. A series of totally random coincidences, and that was 26 years ago. I went back to school at 40 with 2 third graders and a 5th grader. They became very self-sufficient. And taught for 25 years, and absolutely loved it. That's how I did that. Yes, I have never had a plan. It's always been whatever happens next and make the best of it.
Wow, that is wonderful that you found your way into the classroom. You mentioned at the beginning that you are retired now and that you may not have been had COVID not happened. So I wonder if we can kind of go back to the spring of 2020 and talk a little bit about how you learned that teachers in Maryland were going to be quarantined, or sort of how COVID-19 was impacting your town in the spring of 2020.
It was interesting. Number one, I was homesick when they made the announcement. I had, who knows, maybe I had COVID, but I don't think so. I had a stomach virus, and I had taken, and I never take off. I mean, I literally was one of those teachers that I had the swine flu and fell asleep at my desk with a fever of 104, and they sent me home a number of years ago. So I'm not one of those that calls in sick, but I just couldn't go in. And on Thursday, they made the announcement that we were going to be closing on Friday, and I still couldn't go in. So I never even got to say goodbye to my students. I went at the end of the day that Friday and kind of slunk in through the custodian's entrance, grabbed a couple of essentials for the next couple of weeks, and that was it. So I didn't even get to say goodbye in the classroom. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. They had a sub for 3 days. So it was even more of a dribbled out ending.
Yeah. One of the reasons that we're having the oral history project in this way is because it emerged from the National Poetry Month was April, also in the spring. And so teachers wrote during that time, and you wrote some poetry during that time. And it's reminding me of one of the poems that you wrote, Hugs, where, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing that and talking a little bit about when you wrote that poem and where it came from.
Well, I actually wrote the poem much later, but it was, I am a hugger, and I did hall duty every morning. I was in charge of hats and earbuds in the hallway. Hats, earbuds, and hugs. And I had a group of, it was always the weird kids, and all the weird kids would stop in and check in with me. I would check in with them in the morning, and we would hug, and then I'd say, give me my hug, and we'd move on through the day. So I'm a very touchy-feely person. And then it ended. It was gone. So this was the poem I wrote. I don't know, when did I write it? Did I write the date down? It was much later, because I do live in the town in which I teach, which is both good and bad. It's good if you're coming out of a good place. It's bad if you're coming out of the liquor store. But this is the poem I wrote, and here it is. Hugs. The last day of school was stolen from us. No sigh of relief, no wave to the bus. I couldn't hug them. I talked from afar, a world in between, no real connection, naught but a screen. I couldn't hug them. No farewell ceremony to close with. Worse for them than for me, I suppose, but I didn't hug them. They're gone to high school. All the months we had spent dissolved, so many lessons unsent. I can't hug them goodbye. Hunkered in our houses, away from those we know, scurrying through stores, get in, get food, then go. If I see a friend, I wave, because I shouldn't hug them. My friends stay in touch with emails and such, better than nothing, but I so need their touch. I want to hug them. My daughter lives only 2 hours away. Our phone conversations happen every day, but I haven't hugged her. Talk to my mom on the phone every week as her mind fades. It's my presence she sees, yet I can't hug her. On a walk in town, a student appeared. I've missed you, she cried, arms out, running near. I set aside my fear, and I hugged her. So, yeah.
Yeah. What is moving you as you're revisiting this poem now?
I think what our life is right now, and how much I miss my students, and how much I did not want to retire. I'm old, but I had a lot of years left in me, I think. The kids fed me as much as I fed them. And I can't tell you how many times I'm out on the street and different kids will come up, and I try not to hug them, but that one was one that I knew was needy enough that there was no way I wasn't going to. And it felt so good. It really did. So, yeah, I miss so many things. But I miss teaching. It's the first week back, and I'm not there. Even if I were remote, I'd still be with kids. So.
Well, you mentioned, that you were moved to retire because of this. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how COVID-19 sort of impacted your school right after that. So you mentioned that you weren't able to say goodbye, but then what happened next? Like what kind of...
We literally were not allowed in the building even to get things. I mean, it was an overreaction at the time. Now I think our county's underreacting. But they basically, literally, it was a month before we were allowed in, and then it was just for that day. For an hour, we were given hours to come in, that we could come in and gather up our stuff and go out. We're a very rural area. I was able to sneak in to help to we had to give away all our computers to our students. They've given out, I think, 5,000 of the school's computers for students to use at home. And so I got in there that day and lied and went down to my room to get something because we weren't even supposed to go in. It was just an amazing thing. It was like we went from being a group to being a bunch of people that were spread out. And we went immediately to very, very badly done remote teaching. I teach strugglers. I'm the reading specialist. 2 of my 10 kids in my classroom showed up. The rest of them I called, talked to, sent them messages. So it was we never got any closure. My 8th graders didn't get their 8th grade graduation. So many things were taken away from them. But they're alive, so.
Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like then for the online learning, like on a day-to-day basis? If you have 2 students and out of your 10 showing up, what did that look like?
Well, and we weren't allowed to be online with them. We couldn't, at that point, we were not allowed to have visuals because we just weren't allowed to. So for 2 hours a day, I had office hours and they would drop in. And then I had another student that I had been tutoring. He was an ESL student that I helped out just out of the goodness of my heart. And he and I just gave up and did our own little Zoom thing because it was crazy. And literally I would sit there and wait for them to show up. I would do a recorded lesson every day of some sort or give them assignments. And we just tried to maintain contact, making sure they were safe and to make sure they were learning something, maybe, or didn't go backwards. I was going for not backwards. However, the one kid that showed up every day, it was the coolest thing. I was so excited. He showed up every day. His mother and he were just amazing. And he had been reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level. And I worked with him all the time. And he did all the things I gave him to do. And at the very end, we did a post-assessment, and he was down in his basement. His mother, after he did it, I called his mom. I said, listen, if you helped him, I don't care. I just need to know before I tell you what he scored. And she goes, well, I got him started and then locked him in the basement. I mean, obviously it was a study room, but she goes, and then I left him. Why? I said, because he just scored at an 8th grade level. And what we found out was that it was not his reading ability, his ADHD was killing it. And she goes, well, what am I supposed to do? Leave him in the basement for the rest of his life? But it was the most exciting moment that I had been able to, even under these circumstances, this child, who was a delight anyway, had been able to show that he could actually read. And now his teachers will know that it's not that he can't, it's the circumstances. And I guess that's what teaching is about. I've never been so excited as when I opened his score up and I was like, this isn't even possible. And the special educator and I are going, no, he can't, what? And it was so cool. It was the thing that made the year. It really did. I've done that with a couple of other students, and it just turned their life around more than anything. Mm. So that was pretty cool. But his mother, she goes, I can't lock him in the basement. He has to be with other people, but maybe they'll be able to do something about it. but that was a very positive accident. He never would have had that opportunity.
So do you think, so that's one moment where you were saying, that you would wait for your students to come, and this is some silver lining that you're finding, and of what online learning.
That was one silver lining, one. That was it.
And I wonder how you were taking care of yourself, or where writing sort of fit into this for you.
I think writing was what kept me going. To be very honest with you, I used to write a lot. I wrote a lot as a child. I'm a word person. I wrote in college, and then I was teaching full time. I had a bunch of kids, and I was writing lesson plans is what I was writing. So to have this outlet and this group of people that I was writing with that became friends online was, especially in the isolation, was such a reward. It really was. Every day, that would be, I wrote every day for a month. And that was such a gift to me to be able to do that. I think it kept me a little bit, probably a little less insane, if not sane.
What sort of things did you write about? Did you find that you were writing to make sense of COVID, writing to escape, writing, what kind of function did the writing serve for you?
I think it was all of the above. What I found with the writing program that we had was it was something to think about each day, that and I wouldn't write right away. I would get up, I would read the prompt or the assignment, and then it would percolate, and then it gave the day a purpose, and it gave me a thought process that allowed me to leave my house. I mean, that was as close as I came to travel right then, and it was pretty amazing. It was a gift. It really was. The timing could not have been better, I think, for all of us.
Would you mind sharing one of your favorite ones from that month of writing?
My favorite was Ugly Feet.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Huh?
Tell us how that came about.
Well, I think we were supposed to write about, I can't even remember, it was about a body part, wasn't it? I think, or something part of ourselves. And I have always joked that I have really ugly feet. And I come from this family of little tiny people with little cute feet. My mother wore a size 4.5. I bypassed her in 3rd grade. So, ugly, bony, big, long feet. And Ugly Feet sprang from internally, I believe, when I started writing, and I think this may have been my first draft. So here is Ugly Feet. I hail from a family of tiny women with tiny feet. Size 5 feet are cute. Size 5 shoes look silly. They take no room at all. I am not tiny. My size 9 narrows are definitely not cute. My feet define ugly, really. I mean, look up ugly in the dictionary. My foot picture is there. It's long boned, purple veined, toes bent in all the wrong places, toe knuckles fighting their way toward the tops of my shoes, toenails not even worthy of polish. My little piggies stay home because they are embarrassed. These feet belong on a prehistoric beast, thankfully extinct. My husband says that if he'd met my feet first, he wouldn't have asked me out. Truth hurts. Ugly feet.
Thank you.
It is, and that was one that it just, and that my husband has said that that's actually truth. And I have had bone removed from both little toes, and so one of them floats up if I'm wearing sandals for too long. It has very little bone in it, and it literally has no bone to hold it down. So I used to threaten students with making them look at my feet on bad days. So yeah.
So it sounds you're smiling. You know, the response from this poem is quite different than the other, and it's clear that it brought you joy to think about in that way.
It's just, my life has not been easy, partially through my choices and partially not, but I tend to be humorous about most things. And my friends always tell me they can tell me when I'm getting over things when I go from crying to making sarcastic comments about it, and they know I'm in recovery and we can move on then. So that tends to be my approach. I tend to be pretty cynical. That's a good word.
Mm.
I'm a cynical Pollyanna. That's what I am. Or a Pollyannic cynic. I'm not sure which it is.
Mm. When you were sort of writing on a daily basis during April, while you were visiting with your students when they would come or not come. How did the year kind of wrap up? Like, you said there wasn't much closure, but how did your school district or administrators kind of signal to you the progress along the way?
We knew we weren't going back. We had online celebrations for the end of the year, and then it was done. Literally, it just faded away.
What did the online celebration look like or feel like?
It was tacky. Basically, each of us got on and said a poem or something, or wrote something, or sent a little message, and they did a little video. And then I believe each of the kids got to wave. It was really sad because we used to have a pretty major thing, which is about the equivalent of my retirement party as well. So it was about as anticlimactic the end of the school year as it could have been.
What sort of other ways did you help yourself or what other kind of poems did you feel like let you go into different places to help you get through that month? Is there another poem that you'd like to share that was sort of evident of the kind of writing and the kind of places that you would go in your writing?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of them. One of them Who Am I Now was one. I don't know if I sent that to you now. But in response to, I never intended to retire. My husband's health, he's older. He has asthma, diabetes, AFib, and there is absolutely no way that I could bring that home to him, which is why I retired. I've always joked that I was going to be bringing my walker in and knocking kids over with it in the hallway and make it look like an accident. And I have a lot of friends, and had it been a normal year, we would have rocked it out. I mean, there would have been people harassing me from all over the place, and it would have been so much fun. And instead, it was like, and it was gone. So one of the poems I wrote was Who Am I Now? And it pretty much sums up my life. Who am I now? Very good question. One I can't really respond to. I can answer some other questions more easily. Let's begin with those and work up to the now thing. Who was I then? That is so much easier. I was a firstborn. You should know better. I always wanted a sister. Oh, honey, I thought you knew better. She can't help it. You can do better. I was the first child. I was an escapee from expectations, from shoulds, from musts. I moved away, made mistakes, many, learned from them, mostly. I disappointed my family, sometimes disappointing myself. I was the escapee, saddled with guilt. But I was the escapee. I was a businesswoman. Tall heels, tight suits, strong handshake, long stride, lunches and meetings, and none of it mattered to me. But I was a businesswoman. I was a mother. First one, then two more. at once, exhausted, full of love and worry, and sometimes missing that businesswoman I was before, doing the best I could, loving them. Not sure who I was then, not sure who I would become, but I knew what I was. I was their mother. I was a never going to be a teacher. Serendipity, volunteering, subbing, then back to college at 40, mothering, teaching, studying, a blur of time. And then 3 kids were grown and gone. I still had teaching. I was always a teacher. And now, who am I? Back to that again. I'm retired. I did not see that coming. I'm retiring. I am not a teacher. No children to raise, no business to do, and the suits don't fit anyway, and I can't walk in the tall heels. Nothing to escape from. Being firstborn really doesn't matter. Who am I now? Who am I?
Wow. Thank you so much for that. It seems that this is directly connected to while you were sort of making the decision to retire. How did that go? How did you make the commitment to retire? While I can still hear. I mean, I can hear in the poem the ambivalence in there too.
Oh, it's not ambivalent. No. I didn't want.
No.
I think Jim has been after me to retire for some time. I mean, I'm 67, so I could have. Today I'm 67. And he had been after me from the time I qualified for Social Security and before. He had been after me to retire. He likes having me home. I don't know why. And when I realized, I think it was back there and back there and back there and back there. And one Saturday morning I woke up and I knew I had to. And it wasn't a conscious, thought out decision. It was like, okay, that's what has to happen. And I woke up and I called my supervisor and they always used to joke with me that I was going to be like, there till I was 80. And I called them both and I said, it's got to happen. It's not that I want it, but I've got to do it. And that was it. It was just like, boom. It was almost like there was no thought process. It just happened. And it was driven by COVID. Probably not a bad thing. I got to leave before I got grumpy. But so my husband's thrilled. I'm sometimes happy, but boy, I miss it.
Do you think, is there anything that could have been done, or, noticing with all of your experience and noticing how the school systems handle it or how your state sort of responded, is there anything that could have been done differently that may have kept you or that may have changed the situation?
I think I was one of those teachers that I love my husband too much. And had I brought anything home to him, we've been very, very, until we're really virtuous. And couldn't have done it. And my daughter would have killed me if I'd done it. So my oldest would have taken me out. So the combination, in a sense, it was a relief because it was not a decision that weighs on my conscience. It was the right decision at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's think about, I'd love to hear about what's going to be next for you. What does the future hold now, and seeing as you've made this wonderful, loving decision for your family?
Well, one of the things I'm going to be doing starting next week, actually, a former student contacted me. She is homeschooling her 2 kids and her business partners. They're doing homeschooling, and I'm going to be going down twice a week. I'm going to be their English teacher. 2 4th graders and 2 6th graders. And I'm so excited about it. I met with them. I met with the 2 of them And she has a yoga studio, and she had their yoga mats laid out and all their stuff. And they were so well behaved. I said, would you please start misbehaving? This is so wrong. And by the time the fourth grade boy had his mask up over his entire face, I mean, I said, okay, we're good. But I start that next week, and I think that's going to help, if only the 2 hours a week. And I put more planning into those kids than I probably put into my classes of 32 I used to teach. But I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to be online tutoring a fourth grade, fifth grade boy in Florida through another friend. I'm going to be working with him at some point. I'm going to be doing drop-ins for it. I've got some friends that are thinking about homeschooling. If they've asked me to do drop-ins. I think I will get busy once things settle in. I've also been offered a couple of different jobs since then. One of my friends is the principal at a private school, and once COVID is cleared, I'm probably going to be subbing there, but I was offered, and it's such an opportunity, 20 hours a week as the reading specialist / special ed assistant, kind of filling in holes that she couldn't do, but I couldn't take that either. So things will come my way,
So in your community, is it face-to-face in your community right now?
It's all virtual.
Okay.
All virtual. Everybody's losing it right now. I'm very glad. Let me say that my life is much easier than theirs is, but I think I would have enjoyed the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really.
So looking back at everything that's sort of happened in the last few months, do you feel like there's any, what is education going to look like a couple years from now?
Number one, I think technology is going to become much more critical. It is going to become more integral. As compared to you do it, I think there's going to be a lot more flipped teaching. I think there's going to be a better use of our time in class if you have kids that do the work out of class. And once again, I always taught the kids that didn't, so it would have been still all done in class. I think our world is going to change so much that it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. I think it's sad that teachers have we went from heroes to zeros very quickly. I taught from, in the 26 years in the classroom and, having seen my grandmothers as a teacher, and wow, the respect that my grandmother had, I got less, and the respect now is even less. I commanded my own respect, but I see so many teachers struggling because the kids' parents don't respect the teachers. And one of the functions I served in the school was, because I was the reading specialist, I was flexible. Because I had also taught at the alternative school for 5 years, amongst the other things, which is the school for students who don't fit into the traditional classroom. A lot of them had ankle braces. But I would go in and co-teach with new teachers who were having discipline issues, having trouble with classroom management. And I would co-teach it was usually the lower classes, so I would go in as their co-teacher, and I loved it, because I would go in, I didn't have to do any grading, B, would work and do planning with them, and then they would see a different way of interacting with students. And I think you have to work harder to earn the respect these days than you did. The respect is not automatically given to you. And I think it's going to be harder and harder. And I think we're losing a lot of strong teachers for a lot of reasons, for the lack of consideration for them, for the health issues. I mean, just any number of things. I think there's going to be a crisis in education. I really do think it's going to be another education crisis.
And how do you see writing fitting into your life in the next phase for you?
Well, I wait every month for our poetry things, because I find that if I don't have somebody sort of making me write, I don't write. I've sat down a number of times and tried, but if I don't have a prompt from somebody else, now I would write whenever I was making my students write, I would write something for them as a mentor or as a model. So I write 5 days a month right now. But I was looking back, I've written a lot of poems for you guys. Didn't realize all of a sudden, because I had them in a file and I was like, holy moly, I wrote that many poems. But I share them with people at school. I would share them, and it helps me, and I will be doing it, and I'm hoping I can start writing more. But I don't think it's almost like I need somebody nudging me.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think that's why the 5-day writing stints are really helpful to keep coming back to that space, have an audience. I think
it really does. And talking about where I taught made me think of a poem. This is another one. I taught at the alternative school, and I remember one time we were trying to fill out volunteer forms for the elementary school next door, and one of the questions was, it was the adult one they sent us, and it said, have you been convicted of a felony? And I had 4 students go, well, shoot, I can't do this. I'm like going, oh my God. But it was an interesting moment. So this is a poem about one of those students who happened to live in my town. I remember the time, and this is one of my favorite stories about all of that. Actually, I'm drinking out of the coffee cup that I took a picture. It says, Mrs. Sands is the best teacher in the world. P.S. You look young. And I took a picture of this and had it made into a mug. So I am drinking out of this child's official mug that I'm reading the poem about. I remember the time, one summer, a student rode up on his bike as I worked in the yard. He was disheveled, grimy, jeans, shorts, and 2 small t-shirts, a grin wreathing his face. He threw his arms around me in a sweaty hug. Hey, Miss Sands, how's it going? You're not going to believe this. I'm reading a chapter book. And I was so pleased. My heart swelled just a little bit. He had been almost illiterate, a 7th grader at the alternative school where I taught. I remember the time. I thought that if we had accomplished this breakthrough, anything was possible. This was the reward we all seek. I told him how proud I was. We chatted about the book for a moment. Then he looked over his shoulder, hopped on the bike, and calling out, see you later, rocketed down the road. I chuckled and shook my head. Exactly what I was used to from him. 2 middle schoolers ran up, panting. Did you see him? Which way did he go? That's my bike. He stole it. I remember the time when I realized there was still some work to do. It was, I remember I just looked, I thought, and this is my life. But he did end up reading. So, there was still a little more work to be done. Like not thieving. Yeah.
It seems like this, from the poems that you've shared, that these are opportunities to revisit some of your memories and to document them as well as we are documenting them here.
Yeah, well, it took me back into so many things that I had really forgotten and maybe had chosen not to deal with, because in the last 10 years I have sold my house I grew up with because my mom went into, a lot of things. And I would suddenly be writing about things. I would go, whoa, I wasn't going to write about that, but I guess I am now. And it put me in touch with some things that I maybe didn't know. Interestingly enough. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking for a little bit here about education, about COVID, about writing. And I wonder if there's anything else you sort of want people to know or remember about teachers during this time.
I don't think we ever stopped teaching. And I have seen amongst my friends so much angst. Number one, because this is a relatively low socioeconomic community, we worry about our kids. We worry about them. And because we know that a lot of them are not going home to good places with good family relationships. And one of my students that I was so sure she was one of those that could go either way, you know, and I worked with her and we got her in the advanced courses in high school, and she's 15 and she's had a baby. And so we lose so many kids. And we're losing more because of the fact that those are the ones that didn't show up. And I think teachers were put down like, we weren't working as hard, we weren't working. Oh my gosh, the hours that people are putting in right now, and the lack of respect. This is a very Republican area, the county that I live in a very Democratic state. It's interesting. And and because of the low socioeconomics, they resent teachers for the big money they make. And so there is a lot of resentment that comes with it. And there's a part of me that's very glad I'm out, because I think it's going to be uglier before we're done. And I don't think it's fair to these amazing people that I've worked with and that I will work with and that I miss. And that have taken, I had a yard sale in my room, and I just put a free to get home, and I went around and left things in people's rooms, and they're sending me pictures of where I am in their room now.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
I wonder if we could close on with one of your poems.
Sure. Let's see. Oh, here's Dear 15. Dear 15. And I'm ending with this because it's one that won't make me cry. I think. Yes.
Tears are welcome, though. Tears are welcome.
I'm a leaker. My students spend, in every story I've ever read, I have to stop reading and make somebody else read because I'm crying too hard. And I am the biggest joke to them, because I think the reason they're paying attention in class is because they're waiting for me to cry. They're just waiting for the tears to start and my voice to get weird. So that's one of my things I'm known for. I cry with them, I cry for them, I cry about them. Dear 15, sit down, sweetheart. You are not going to believe the things I have to tell you. I'm just going to sum it all up. You are going to make more mistakes than you can even imagine. But those mistakes are going to turn you into a very interesting senior citizen. You will cuss a lot. Probably more than you should. Those plans you have, plans are made to be changed. It will take 3 colleges to get your BA and a major you won't use, and date a much older man and find out that that's no good, and grow up and move away and have a good job you hate, and meet a guy that your mom hates and marry him and have 1 child and then twins. Not a smart move, by the way. And oh yes, there's a recession that messes everything up, and you get around to teaching at 40 and you finally have a job you love, and then your kids will grow up and move out. You will be a very bad housekeeper. And all of this requires a lot of cussing. Even before coronavirus 19. We won't even talk about that. You wouldn't believe me anyway. So here's my advice, 15. Take it step by step. Every decision and every mistake you make will teach you a lesson. Learn from them. Mix it up. Make a different mistake every time. You were really good at that mistake thing in the 70s. Throw in a few good decisions now and again just to keep it interesting. That guy your mom hated, he's a keeper, by the way. Love your people, Get a lot of pets and keep your weight down. Your knees will thank you. And a couple of cuss words will always clear the air. You have a heck of a ride ahead, 15.
Thank you so much, Gayle Sands, for sharing your stories with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.